Welcome to the first ever Scarlet and Gray Report podcast, a podcast that's name could have been the Scarlet and Gray Report, but that would have been a little bit too confusing. My name is Colin Gay. I am the managing editor of this Ohio State rival site covering Ohio State football and men's basketball. This is going to be a little bit of a condensed version of the show. Just because we just got done talking with Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, Perry Eliano, Tim Walton, and Justin Fry for the first time. And there's a lot to get through. But the interesting thing, I'm going to start here. The interesting thing that really came up, and it's been an issue for Ohio State from the start here, is, before even they could even go through the coaching changes and the new scheme and all of this different kind of stuff, they have to deal with, okay, how many players can we actually have on a roster? How many guys can we have in terms of scholarships? And that's a real issue for Ohio State right now. So let's start with the guys that are returning. So Ohio State head coach Ryan Day confirmed that 3 players are returning for Ohio State this next year. That's defensive tackle Jaron Cage, linebacker Ie Gaoteote, the fourth, which I haven't actually never said out loud, so forgive my pronunciation, and then linebacker Taraji Mitchell. All 3 of those will be returning, along with a couple of other guys like Noah Ruggles that was announced earlier, along with Mitch Rossi, the fullback / tight end. He will be returning. And then to continue that, Ohio State or Ryan Day said that Sevyn Banks will not be returning next year, saying that in a kind of a weird exchange that he will be meeting with his parents and Sevyn tomorrow at the Woody. But going through the numbers, and that's, Ohio State has had so much change to its roster this year, and it's kind of been a lot to keep up with. So they had 19 moves, and that includes all of the transfers. I'm not going to name them all here. You know what they are. So Quinn Ewers, Jack Miller, Darian Henry King to Kentucky, the 2 linebackers. You got Dallas Gannon, Kayvon Pope, all gone, all transferred from the program. You got the guys that left for the next level, whether it's Banks, I assume, as I previously mentioned, Chris Olave, Thayer Munford, Garrett Wilson, just all Jeremy Ruckert, Nicholas Petit-Frere. You got these guys. That's a total of 19 players that have left. And so Ohio State answered that with 23 moves. Okay, so 23 moves. That's 21 members of the 2022 recruiting class. And that's 2 transfers, Tanner McAllister from Oklahoma State and Diamante Trainum from Arizona State to join the linebacker room. So heading into spring, as Ohio State prepares to kind of ramp up ahead of the spring game in April, which has not been announced what day that will be, but it has 92 members of the roster, including Carson Hinsman and Omari Abor, who have not signed yet. 92 positions, 92 players for 85 spots. That's not a good combination. And it's something that Ryan Day made it clear today that he was not worried about, but it's definitely something that will need to be focused on here moving forward. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't. And I think it's clear where the changes need to be made. According to Ryan Day, you see his ideal scenario for the roster is 41 members of the offense, 41 members of the defense, and 3 special teams specialists. So that creates that adds up to exactly 85. And it breaks down even further, which there's stories on our website that we've gone through that has given those numbers. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this as kind of the year goes on. But right now, Ohio State is at 40 offensive players or offensive scholarship players and 49 members of the defense on scholarship. that's kind of where it's an interesting kind of conundrum here for Ohio State, and that's kind of where the Ohio State coaching staff started today when it really met for the first time. All the new guys, it was kind of like I was talking to a colleague on the way out. We were like, this is kind of like the first day of school, whether it's Ryan Day, Justin Fry, the offensive line coach and associate head coach for the offense. You got defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Jim Knowles. You got Perry Eliano, who's coming from Cincinnati, now is coaching the safeties, and then Tim Walton coming from the NFL, Jacksonville, with Urban Meyer, and now he's here coaching the secondary and the quarterbacks. We got to talk to all of them today, and I'm not going to give you like parse by a rundown of what everyone said. That will be coming in the coming days. I just kind of wanted to give you my first impressions of each one. And I think, the majority of the time here is going to be stuck on Jim Knowles, because that's really the focus of what Ryan Day was talking about a lot today. And I know it's been reported, it's been kind of cultivated through whether he said it, doesn't really matter. But Jim Knowles is the head coach of the defense. Ryan Day made that clear this afternoon, saying, he has the full control. Whatever Jim Knowles wants to do with a four-man front, and whatever defense he has behind him, whatever works against the offense that's playing that day, that's going to be what Jim Knowles runs. And he has a lot of control here. And I think that's what Ryan Day wanted in a defensive coordinator, one that would kind of wipe the slate clean and start over. This is going to be Jim Knowles' defense. This isn't going to be Ryan Day's defense that is run by a defensive coordinator. This is kind of an even split. And it'll be fascinating to see, even in the coaching staff. You see Jim Knowles was the one who wanted two secondary coaches. He wanted one safeties coach and then one cornerbacks coach, kind of to combine there, where his Knowles' personal attention is more on the linebackers, which is his position coach. He's coaching, and then Larry Johnson, or the defensive line and Larry Johnson. That's kind of his focus instead of the backfield, which will be fascinating to see. So he's the one who kind of, he worked with Day to kind of create this defensive staff with Perry Eliano. Great track record. Sauce Gardner coming, the cornerback, going to be in the NFL draft this year. Great track record. And then Tim Walton, his story. Having coached Jalen Ramsey, coming from Ohio State, former Ohio State player from 1989 to 1992, I believe, 1992 or 1993. But this is Knowles' approach, and this is Knowles' defense. And it's so funny, when he was talking, he was talking in a way like this has been a thing. This has been something he's known for. And it's almost this nonchalant confidence when someone asks him, like, how does it feel when you come in and you're expected to change a defense, when you're expected to come in and, just clear everything out and then put something new in. And it was like a smirk, and we'll learn more about like who Jim Knowles is and what his tendencies are. But it was a smirk, and he said something like the message of, I've been hired to do this before, which is very intriguing, which is very, very, it's true. It's what he was hired to do at Duke, which we went over in my Monday morning column. It's what he was hired to do at Oklahoma State, kind of turning that defense on its head over 4 years, and just turning it into one of the best units in the country. Statistically, it's it's by far the best unit in the Big 10 or Big 12, excuse me. But it turned into like the best rushing attack in the Big 12, the best, one of the best in terms of points per game, yards per game. Jim Knowles' defense, he was a very, very highly touted and targeted defensive coach, coordinator. Yeah, like he was well wanted like around the country. And he knows that, and he's a confident guy. And you can kind of see that. I mean, he's very, very personable as well. I mean, I met him at the Pickerington Central game when I went to go see Sonny Styles. I mean, short conversation, but extremely personable guy. You could see how he relates to kids on the roster, how he kind of creates this culture just by himself, which he was talking about, kind of a funny thing where, because there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be changes to scheme. There's going to be changes to just what the defense does, what it looks like, what leads to success. And one of the things he was talking about was how he creates, like quizzes and games and things like that in player meetings to keep them accountable to learning these new looks, to learning these new defenses. And, calling them out, showing, he said he was talking about showing a picture of a player in the middle of a meeting, like just on a random slide, and having them get up and answer within a certain amount of time, or the play, quote unquote, is over. So, I mean, he's an interesting character, and he's bringing a lot of seemingly excitement and juice to this defensive staff. I mean, both Perry and Tim Walton, both Perry Arellano and Tim Walton, we're talking, I mean, they were praising this guy, and they had not worked with him, but I mean, they're extremely excited to work with Jim Knowles. But it'll just be fascinating, because Jim Knowles was clear when we were talking about him, or with him, that he's getting kind of roped in. He's still learning the roster. He said he was talking about how film really doesn't do justice in terms of how to evaluate a player, or evaluate a scheme, or developing something from for a defense. And so it's not something that he already knows what he's going to do, or what players he's going to do. We can have ideas based on what he's done in the past, whether it's at Duke or Oklahoma State. And we kind of talked about that in my Monday morning column, which I'm going to plug again because it's fun and that's what I do. But we can guess, but we just don't know, because he doesn't know yet. And that'll take getting to know players. That's one of the things that all 4 coaches talked about today, was getting to know players, getting into a room with them, and actually learning about them, learning about what makes them tick, what they're good at, what they're not so good at. And so it'll take time. Today was kind of just the start of it. It was the first time that they were in a meeting room together. And like I said earlier, they were kind of just looking through the depth chart, seeing what they had, seeing what scholarships they had available, what moves they needed to make, what moves they really can't make, what's coming, what's not coming, things like that. I mean, that's just the start of the conversation. And I think, that's not going to get a lot of attention kind of in the scope of Ohio State coverage. But that's, I feel, is the most important topic at this point is, okay, where is this roster at? Where is it going with these new coaches? And I think, and we'll get to this later, but one more thing about Knowles is he was talking about, specifically about how important Tanner McAllister was. So Tanner McAllister was his starting cover safety for at Oklahoma State. And he went into the transfer portal. Jim Knowles said he didn't talk to Tanner from his time when he was hired by Ohio State, when his time with the Cowboys was done, and until Tanner entered the transfer portal, which Jim Knowles said that it wasn't a guarantee. Like, it wasn't something that he thought was going to happen. He thought Tanner might go to the NFL, which he said he's an NFL ready player. But in Tanner McAllister, Jim Knowles said that he's a coach on the field. He can allow players and help players learn this scheme in a different way than Jim Knowles can. Like, in one who's experienced it, who's learned it for himself, and can, I don't know, like, just give it to players in a way that they understand, because he had to learn it first, right? So it'll be fascinating to see how his relationship kind of blooms in this offense, because he might be the make or break guy. He might be the guy that kind of defines where this defense goes in his first year, because he does have only 1 year to kind of do this. And it'll be fascinating to see what Tanner McAllister can do. So, one more thing before we go, and I kind of want to mention this, and I'm actually going to write this here soon. But one of my main questions I didn't talk to Jim Knowles about this, but he's been here longer, relatively. He's been hired with Ohio State since December. However, one of the things that I talked with Justin Fry, Perry Eliano, and Tim Walton about was kind of, and I don't know if this was, clear, or it was something that you guys noticed or was noticed in general, but they kind of were, they signed on the dotted line. They joined Ohio State, posted on Twitter and got all the feedback, and we wrote about it and things like that. But then they immediately went on the road. And there are Ohio State connections here. I mean, Justin Fry's family, he's from the Midwest. He went to Indiana, played football at Indiana, went out to Boston College, coached with Ryan Day. That's where that relationship kind of helps. But I mean, he's been at UCLA with Chip Kelly, and Perry Eliano knows Cincinnati, or knows Ohio because of his time at Cincinnati. He knows how to recruit Ohio. He knows he had his own targets from the Midwest and things like that. Tim Walton, I mean, he knows Ohio State, but he's been out of the game for years out in the NFL. What is it like? And this is what I asked them is what is it like to, immediately sign, immediately join the coaching staff and go out on the road, recruiting people, talking about the brand of Ohio State, which is nationally known, but it's not known to them, especially when they, go in with kind of that, like insignia on their chest, like saying that they represent the brand of Ohio State. They just got there. And I think that's fascinating. And that's one of the things that, they know. And that's Justin Fry knows is, yes, it's about the brand and it gets them into doors, but really recruiting doesn't change. It's just the players get better when you're at the level that Ohio State recruits at. It's all about relationships. It's all about relationship building and creating that and generating that trust. I mean, that's the job of the coaching staff. That's the job of Perry Eliano. That's the job with the current roster too. Perry was talking about how he had to, as soon as he got hired, he was calling members of the roster. He was calling members of his room, texting them, checking in on them, creating that relationship, because he's joining something. All of these coaches are joining something. They kind of had to cultivate their own culture here. And for a brand that has only gotten bigger since Tim Walton was here or in Columbus, playing for Ohio State in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, it's only gotten bigger. It's only grown. And with national championships and NFL draft picks and the college football playoff and Urban Meyer, Ryan Day, like these guys that are just, have heightened the level of the Ohio State brand so much. It's only gotten bigger, but it's the approach recruiting that just hasn't changed, which is absolutely fascinating to me. And it'll be interesting to see how those relationships are kind of, cultivated and what it leads to. Because, I mean, obviously there's targets. I mean, you saw Justin Fry out in Findlay going to Target, going to a basketball game with Ryan Day and Corey Dennis, seeing Luke Montgomery and Ryan Montgomery, Luke Montgomery, a offensive line target in 2023, in-state, big target for Ohio State. And then you have Ryan Montgomery, 2025 quarterback, already offered by Ohio State, which does not happen. But, I mean, how can a relationship build? Because Justin Fry is a no frills kind of coach. Like, I mean, he was talking to me about, like, he's not going to be dancing. He's not going to be, the guy who's all over social media. Like, he wants It's as simple to him as blocking and tackling is in football. It's just gaining trust, building relationships. And it'll be fascinating to see where that leads here and see how successful that will be. He's a young guy. I mean, he's relatable, he's personable. He's a guy that, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of what that leads to in terms of recruiting success. And that was kind of the first thing that came to mind. There was so much more here. And I'm extremely excited to kind of dig into it and talk to you guys and get on the site, get on the board and discuss this all with you, because there's a lot more to parse through here as Ohio State prepares for a spring where it's going to look completely different. It's going to look a lot different here in terms of maybe not the culture, but this defense is going to be changed a lot. And it'll be the same players, but there's just a lot here. And again, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but really this is a lot to go through. And I'm super excited to get into it. But until then, stay locked in to scarletandgrayreport.com. Join our community and talk through, and we could talk through the latest happenings in both Ohio State football and basketball, and maybe get some exclusive information from inside both programs as we continue to go through the Ohio State basketball season, which it was a hell of a game on Sunday, which we've talked about on the board extensively. But stay locked in. Follow me on Twitter at ColinGay17. Follow us on Twitter at Ohio State or OhioST_rivals. And until next time, we'll see you on the board.